Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a story that really cuts straight to the heart of what it means to be human.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the raw, often volatile dynamics within families, especially, between siblings.
hmm
Think about that complex mix where, like, profound affection can tangle with intense rivalry, even outright jealousy. It's pretty universal, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. A fundamental aspect of the human condition, you might say.
Yeah.
It plays out in countless ways, big and small.
Yeah, from playground squabbles to these deep-seated family feuds, we've all seen it, or maybe even felt those powerful, unchecked emotions ourselves.
But what really happens when those intense emotions like jealousy are just allowed to fester, allowed to grow unchecked?
Right.
How does one choice, maybe one act born of hatred, create this tragic ripple effect? One that shapes not just a single life, but the course of generations.
That's the core question for today, isn't it? We just left Adam and Eve back in Genesis chapter 3. They'd made that pivotal choice. They're expelled from Eden, navigating a suddenly cursed world, grappling with shame, toil, and the stark reality of their newfound mortality.
It was a profoundly broken beginning.
And the consequences, they didn't just stop with Adam and Eve.
And that's exactly where Genesis chapters 4 and 5 pick up the story. For you, our listener, we move from that sort of intimacy of humanity's origins and the initial fracture in Eden straight into the immediate devastating breakdown of family bonds. It's the chilling narrative of the very first murder in human history, the story of Cain and Abel.
And then it's almost like the narrative needs to pause to absorb the shock of that act. It takes this surprising turn.
It does.
It transitions into these sweeping rhythmic genealogies. They detail the march of human life and death spanning centuries.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to really explore the escalating nature of sin after the fall.
Right.
We want to look at the subtle nuances of acceptable worship, that intricate interplay between divine justice and divine mercy. And then, crucially, the vital significance of those ancient genealogies. Because they aren't just lists of names.
Right, they're more than that.
They illustrate the relentless passage of time, yes, but also the unbroken line of humanity leading towards a really pivotal figure, Noah.
It's a journey that reveals so much about human nature, about God's character, and the very trajectory of history.
Exactly. Let's truly unpack these foundational chapters. #tag narrative walkthrough.
Okay, so let's start with the first family, outside the gates of Eden. Genesis 4 opens very directly, very intimately. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain. That phrase, to know, it's not just a biological detail, is it? In ancient Hebrew, it implies this deep, intimate, personal relationship.
That's right. It's much more than just physical intimacy. It's relational knowledge.
And Eve, when Cain is born, she exclaims, "I have gotten a man from the Lord." You can almost feel the weight of her hope in those words.
That's a fantastic observation, because Eve's exclamation, "I've gotten a man from the Lord," well, it's loaded with possibility. The name Cain itself literally means gotten or acquired.
Right.
And scholars often point to her words here, thinking, maybe she was hinting at this hopeful, perhaps even triumphant belief.
Belief in what, specifically?
That this firstborn son might be the promised seed from Genesis 3.15.
Ah, the deliverer.
The one destined to bruise the serpent's head, yes. The deliverer. It's this powerful, yet ultimately tragic projection of all her post-fall hopes onto this child.
And then the text just continues. And she again bears his brother Abel. What about Abel's name? Does that carry any particular significance, especially when we look back?
That's a great question, because Abel's name in Hebrew Hebel is deeply poignant.
Hebel.
Yes, it's often associated with breath or vapor, something fleeting, ephemeral.
Breath or vapor.
And given his tragically short life, extinguished so brutally, it resonates with an almost unbearable irony, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's a subtle foreshadowing that, often goes unnoticed. It hints at the brevity, the fragility of his existence, even before the story fully unfolds.
Wow. Right. And immediately their distinct occupations are highlighted. Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. These aren't just jobs. These feel like fundamental early forms of human labor. They show humanity's swift adaptation to that post-fall world where, sustenance now required intense toil from the cursed ground.
Absolutely. After the curse in Eden, the ground no longer yielded freely, Both farming and animal husbandry became necessary for survival.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand the ancient Near Eastern, the ANE context here.
Okay.
These weren't just jobs, they were often identities and sometimes competing ways of life.
How so?
Well, nomadic shepherds like Abel, moving their flocks, and settled agriculturalists like Cain, tied to the land. While both were vital, they could often clash over land and resources.
Oh, okay.
So this underlying societal dynamic, it adds a subtle layer to the tension brewing between the brothers, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so we move to a truly crucial moment. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. That phrase, in process of time, it suggests maybe this was a regular practice, or at least a significant appointed occasion for worship.
It seems likely, yeah. A set time.
And Cain brings this general offering just of the fruit of the ground.
And then we see the contrast, which is absolutely pivotal. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof.
The details there seem important.
Oh, the details here are absolutely crucial. Firstlings implies the very best, the prime of his flock.
The first and best.
And fat in ancient cultures. That was often considered the richest, most valuable part of the animal. It symbolized the essence.
Okay.
So this isn't just an offering. It suggests a qualitative difference, a more dedicated, reverent, and costly approach from Abel.
And God's response is stark. It's immediate. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. This respect, it's not just acknowledging it was there.
Right.
It's acceptance, approval, a divine affirmation.
That's right, acceptance.
And the immediate implication is that something was profoundly different about Cain's heart, or maybe the quality of his gift, or both.
You've hit on a critical point there. The difference wasn't likely about the type of offering itself.
Yeah.
God accepts both agricultural and animal offerings later in Scripture.
Okay.
It seems to be about the heart behind it. Abel gave his best, his firstling, and fat, which indicates genuine devotion, reverence.
Right.
Cain's offering, described more generally, maybe implies a less devoted spirit, a casual approach, perhaps even a grudging attitude. God, being omniscient, saw the true disposition of each brother's heart. And this really sets a foundational principle for acceptable worship. It's about the heart.
And Cain's reaction is so intensely human and deeply worrying. The text says he was very wroth and his countenance fell. This isn't just mild annoyance. Wroth implies a deep burning anger. And his countenance fell. You can picture it. A visible physical manifestation of that inner turmoil, anger, resentment, wounded pride, maybe even shame.
It was a full-body experience of his inner state, wasn't it? Right there for God to see. And what's truly illuminating here is that God immediately addresses Cain's internal state directly.
Yeah, he steps right in.
God asks, "Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen?" Now, these aren't questions born of ignorance, of course. God knows.
Right, he's not asking for information.
No. They're an empathetic, probing invitation. An invitation for Cain to self-reflect, to confess, maybe to change course. It's a divine intervention, really. A moment of profound counsel offering a path to redemption and self-mastery.
And the counsel God offers is incredibly powerful, almost poetic. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted, and if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. The imagery is so vivid, isn't it? Sin lying at the door like a predator.
Like a predatory beast, yeah. Crouching, waiting to pounce and consume him.
So how should we understand what God was really communicating to Cain there? What's the core message?
That's a fantastic question, because this is such a critical point about human agency, about our ongoing battle with temptation.
Okay.
God makes it abundantly clear that Cain still had a choice, a real choice. He could do well-meaning, he could choose to act rightly, overcome his destructive emotions, master the temptation.
And he had the power to choose differently.
Yes. The phrase, "sin lieth at the door," personifies sin as this lurking predator eager to dominate. But God's powerful message is, "Unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him."
Rule over sin.
Exactly. It echoes God's words to Eve in Genesis 3:16 regarding her husband, implying that just as one must master another, Cain must master the sin that desires him. He has the inherent capacity, perhaps the divine enablement, to overcome it if he chooses to.
But he doesn't heed the warning, does he?
No, he doesn't.
The narrative then proceeds to this chilling setup. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother. It sounds so innocent, just a casual conversation between siblings.
It's deceptively simple.
Yet it tragically precedes the ultimate betrayal. And then, the brutal act. And it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. The text is so stark, unembellished. It focuses on the tragic outcome, not graphic details.
And that unembellished nature, it emphasizes the profound violation of life and kinship. It's the first recorded murder. Fratricide, a brother killing his brother.
Unthinkable.
And it reveals how quickly sin had metastasized, from individual disobedience in Eden to destructive interpersonal violence. The apparent innocence of that conversation Cain talked with Abel makes the subsequent act even more shocking, more treacherous. It feels premeditated.
And just as he did with Adam and Eve in the garden, God directly confronts Cain. Where is Abel, thy brother?
Again, not a question, because God doesn't know.
No, it's an invitation to confession. A call for Cain to acknowledge his deed. But Cain's response, it's defiant. It's dishonest.
It really is.
I know not. Am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
This is not just the first recorded lie in human history. It's an outright denial of responsibility for his fellow man, an abdication of shared humanity, a refusal of accountability.
And that question, am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
It highlights the immediate breakdown of the most fundamental human bond, the one between siblings.
Yeah.
It's a refusal to accept the inherent responsibility we have for one another, a direct consequence, really, of the escalating self-centeredness brought by sin. It's an attempt to push away the very idea of communal accountability.
Which is, as you said, a pillar of human society.
Indeed.
God, of course, knows the truth. And he retorts with this powerful, almost visceral imagery. What hast thou done?
Yeah.
The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground.
That phrase, it's haunting.
It isn't just poetic license, is it? There's deep theological significance here. The earth itself bears witness to the injustice.
Suggesting that creation itself is disturbed by this act of violence and demands a divine response. It speaks to a kind of cosmic outcry.
Wow.
Yeah, the blood crying from the ground implies that life, once unjustly taken, leaves this indelible stain that echoes through creation, requiring a divine response for justice to be met. It foreshadows a consistent biblical theme: justice for the innocent, establishing early on that God is a God who sees injustice and hears the cries of the victim, even if no human witness is present.
And then comes the pronounced curse upon Cain. First, he is cursed from the earth, meaning his connection to the very ground that was his livelihood, his entire profession as a farmer, is severed.
Yeah, the tool of his trade is now cursed for him.
The earth which he tilled will not henceforth yield unto thee her strength, making his toil fruitless. For a farmer, that is just a bitter, poetic irony, a devastating punishment.
And it's not just his livelihood that's affected. His destiny is to be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, a life of perpetual restlessness and displacement, directly contrasting the settled life of a farmer and reflecting his internal unrest, his alienation from both God and man. He's literally driven away, becoming an outsider to the very world he inhabited.
Cain's reaction to this punishment is really striking. My punishment is greater than I can bear. Now, the King James Version has that marginal note offering an alternative interpretation. Mine iniquity is greater than that may be forgiven.
Right, that ambiguity is fascinating.
Is he overwhelmed by the consequence of his actions or the sheer magnitude of his sin? It certainly feels more focused on the impact on himself.
I think that's crucial here. Cain's lament seems to center on the personal cost of his punishment,
Yeah.
rather than genuine remorse or repentance for the heinous act itself. His fear isn't really of God's judgment in a spiritual sense, but overwhelmingly of the social consequences.
He says it himself.
Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. He fears human retribution, vengeance.
And this leads to one of the most surprising acts in the entire story. God's profound mercy amidst severe judgment.
It really stands out.
And the Lord said unto him, Therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And God set a mark upon Cain, not as an extra punishment,
No, definitely not.
but specifically lest any finding him should kill him.
This mark upon Cain, it's not explicitly described as, say, physical disfigurement in the text.
No details.
Its primary purpose is clearly stated. It's a divine designation for protection. This act demonstrates a powerful paradoxical blend of justice. Cain is punished for his sin and mercy.
Right.
God prevents immediate anarchic vengeance, thereby controlling the escalation of human retribution. It underscores God's continued sovereign hand over even fallen humanity, ensuring a continuation of the human race despite its wickedness. It's a remarkable act of divine restraint.
Cain then departs. He went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. This signifies not just a geographical separation, but a spiritual one, right? A movement away from the divine presence.
Absolutely. A self-imposed exile, in a sense.
And ironically, this fugitive, Cain, he knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch.
The irony is thick, isn't it?
Yeah.
A man cursed to be a vagabond, a wanderer, instead builds a city.
Yeah, what do we make of that?
Well, it could be interpreted in a few ways. Perhaps it's a means of self-preservation, seeking security in numbers in a hostile world.
Okay, understandable.
Or, maybe more provocatively, it's an attempt to establish his own kingdom, his own legacy, entirely apart from God's established order. A declaration of human autonomy, maybe,
Right.
but one born out of displacement, defiance, and a desire for self-sufficiency.
Interesting. His lineage then unfolds. Enoch begat Irad. Irad begat Mehujael. Mehujael begat Methuselah, and Methuselah begat Lamech. And Lamech is a key figure in this lineage because he dramatically illustrates the further escalation of human depravity. The text notes, Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah.
This is the first recorded instance of polygamy.
Right.
It signals a further departure from God's original design for marriage, the one we saw back in Genesis 2.
So another step away from the ideal.
It's a significant deviation from the monogamous ideal established in Eden, a clear indication of humanity moving further away from God's intended order, embracing practices driven more by human desire than divine design. This doesn't just complicate relationships, it introduces more potential for discord, for injustice within the family and society. It's a societal consequence.
And Lamech's children, born from these 2 wives, they're noteworthy for their contributions to early human culture, even within this increasingly corrupt line.
Yes, it's fascinating.
Jabal became the father of such as dwell in tents and of such as have cattle, representing nomadic pastoralism. Jubal was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ, marking the origins of music and the arts.
Culture develops.
And Tubal-Cain was an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, pointing to metallurgy and technological advancement. His sister was Naamah.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? Even within a lineage marked by increasing sin and separation from God, there's still incredible creativity, innovation, cultural development.
Yeah, humanity still creates.
Humanity, even in its fallen state, retains aspects of the divine image, that capacity for creation, for art, for technological advancement. It speaks to the enduring ingenuity of humankind, even as its morality falters.
But Lamech's most infamous moment comes with his chilling song, or boast to his wives, in Genesis 4:23-24.
Oh, yes.
Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech. For I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold.
This is just, wow.
It's a stark declaration of unchecked violence.
This declaration is a dramatic crescendo in the escalation of violence and self-aggrandizement. It truly highlights how far human society has fallen.
How so compared to Cain?
Well, Cain received a 7-fold protection from God, a divine act of mercy meant to control vengeance.
Right. God set that limit.
Lamech, however, boasts of 77-fold vengeance for himself. He demonstrates this profound embrace of unchecked retribution, of human presumption over divine authority.
He's taking it into his own hands exponentially.
Exactly. He's essentially saying, if you mess with me, my retaliation will be 10 times greater than what God promised for Cain. I am the law. It showcases a culture spiraling into self-righteous, brutal violence.
So, with the lineage of Cain detailing this growing depravity and violence, the narrative gracefully pivots. It turns back.
It does. A needed shift.
We return to Adam and Eve, who conceives another son, Seth. And Eve's statement upon his birth is just filled with renewed hope. For God hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. Seth's name, meaning appointed or put, emphasizes his significance as a replacement, offering a new, hopeful lineage.
This marks a truly crucial turning point in the early biblical narrative. Seth represents the continuation of the line from which salvation, and indeed the entire future of humanity, would eventually come.
So he's key.
He's a direct answer to the tragic loss of Abel, a divine act of grace amidst profound human tragedy, offering a new beginning for humanity's spiritual trajectory.
And the significance continues when Seth has a son named Enos. The crucial phrase follows, "Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord."
Yes. This is profoundly significant.
What does this tell us about this new line of humanity, Seth's line?
This phrase, "Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord," it marks a significant shift. It indicates a renewed desire for public worship, for relationship, for the invocation of God's name among this new line.
A different direction than Cain's line.
A stark contrast to the defiance and self-reliance we just saw in Cain's lineage, especially with Lamech. This suggests a communal acknowledgement and worship of God, an expression of faith and dependence, like a spiritual reawakening in the face of widespread human depravity. It hints at a community actively seeking to walk with God.
And this brings us right to chapter 5, which introduces itself as the Book of the Generations of Adam. It establishes itself as a formal record of human lineage, starting with humanity's creation in the likeness of God.
A formal record.
This chapter then meticulously walks us through each generation, emphasizing this consistent structure and a recurring, almost somber refrain.
Yes, for Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalaleel, Jared, Methuselah, and Lamech, Seth's descendant, not Cain's, the pattern is remarkably consistent. Name lived X years and begat son, and Name lived after he begat son Y years and begat sons and daughters, and all the days of Name were Z years. And he died.
And he died, again and again.
That relentless repetition of "and he died," it serves as this powerful, undeniable reminder of the pervasive consequence of the fall. Death has entered the human experience as a universal, inescapable reality.
It truly is like a drumbeat of mortality, isn't it? Despite living these incredibly long lifespans, Adam lived 930 years, Seth 912, Methuselah a record-setting 969 years.
Incredible ages.
Death is the ultimate destination for nearly everyone listed. These remarkably long lifespans, by the way, they underscore the passage of vast periods of early human history, don't they?
They absolutely do, emphasizing how much time elapsed in these initial generations and how much accumulated knowledge might have been passed down. But as you say,
Even with those long lives.
that's the crucial point. Even with such extended lives, the narrative ensures we don't forget the stark reality of the curse. The almost formulaic repetition of "and he died" reinforces that mortality is the universal human fate. It's a direct fulfillment of God's warning in Genesis 2.17, impacting every single generation.
But amidst this somber march of mortality, there's a singular, truly unique exception, Enoch.
Ah, Enoch.
Yes. His lineage is noted. Jared begat Enoch, Enoch begat Methuselah. But the description of Enoch is radically different. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years, and all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God. And he was not, for God took him.
He was not, for God took him. That phrase is the singular exception to the "and he died" refrain in all of chapter 5.
It completely breaks the pattern.
It suggests a unique non-death end for Enoch, specifically linked to his righteous walk. Enoch walked with God.
So what does that tell us?
Well, what Enoch's story hands us is this profound spiritual truth, remarkably early in the narrative. A genuine, deep connection with God can actually shift your entire destiny. It can even defy the universal fate of mortality. It's a glimpse of a different kind of ending.
A glimmer of hope.
A beacon of devotion amidst a world increasingly defined by sin and death. It hints at a spiritual reward that transcends the physical curse.
And speaking of long lives, Methuselah, Enoch's son, lived 969 years, the oldest recorded human in the Bible.
The record holder.
It's a striking detail that further emphasizes the extent of human longevity post-fall. Yet even for him, the story concludes with that familiar refrain.
And he died.
Right. The record holder still succumbed to the universal curse.
Indeed. Methuselah's incredibly long life, the longest recorded, still culminates in death, reinforcing the universal consequence of sin. But it also gives a powerful sense of the vastness of early human history, how much accumulated experience might have been passed down before things shifted dramatically.
Finally, chapter 5 leads us to Lamech, of Seth's line this time, who names his son Noah. And the name means rest or comfort. Lamech expresses this specific, poignant hope. This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. This naming isn't just a parental choice. It feels like it actively foreshadows the future narrative.
It's a really powerful statement, almost a prayer, isn't it? You can practically hear the deep human longing for some kind of break, some comfort from the relentless grind, the sheer burden of living on this cursed earth.
A weariness comes through.
It perfectly sets the stage for Noah's pivotal role in the coming narrative. It connects the hope of comfort to a future divine intervention that will address the pervasive sin and the curse. It's an anticipation of relief.
And chapter 5 concludes with Noah's age, 500 years, and the introduction of his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Next generation.
These 3 will be instrumental in the next dramatic phase of human history, marking a foundational moment for all of humanity to come. #tag character deep dive. Okay, let's take a closer look now at these pivotal figures, starting with Cain. His story is just. It's a masterclass in the embodiment of unchecked jealousy and the genesis of violence.
It really is.
When God respected Abel's offering but not his own, it struck him deeply. His offering, though present, clearly lacked the quality or maybe the heart disposition that God accepted in Abel's.
That's the heart of it, isn't it? Cain's internal motivations, as revealed by his actions and God's words, seem rooted not just in the offerings themselves, but in that divine acceptance of Abel.
It's the comparison.
It wasn't merely about the gift. It was profoundly about the giver and the divine preference shown to Abel. And this ignited that deep-seated envy, that wrath spirit, that powerful burning anger when confronted with Abel's favorable standing with God. It moved quickly from disappointment to resentment.
And we trace a very clear and frankly frightening path of sin's escalation in him. From that internal anger, that visible countenance fell, being very wroth. It quickly spiraled into outward aggression. And God explicitly warned him, sin lieth at the door like that predator, offering him the choice to rule over it. But Cain's failure to heed this warning, it demonstrates a conscious, deliberate choice to succumb to his destructive emotions rather than mastering them.
It's a tragic step into evil. A conscious decision to give in to his baser instincts, leading to the unthinkable act of fratricide. And this highlights that crucial theological point of human agency.
We have a choice.
Even in a fallen world, individuals are held accountable for their choices, to either master sin or be mastered by it. Cain had a window, an opportunity provided by God's warning to repent and change. But he chose a different path.
His punishment is also full of these stark ironies. The curse directly impacted his livelihood. The very ground he tilled would no longer yield its strength.
Right.
For a farmer, it's just a bitter poetic irony, a divine judgment perfectly fitting the crime
Absolutely.
and his eternal state, a fugitive and a vagabond. This isn't just a transient punishment. It feels like a life of perpetual displacement, restlessness. It vividly reflects his internal unrest and alienation from God and his fellow man. He's adrift, both physically and spiritually.
And his lament about the punishment, my punishment is greater than I can bear, or perhaps my iniquity is greater than I can bear. It further reveals this profound self-focus.
All about him.
It's concern for the consequences for himself and his comfort, rather than genuine remorse or repentance for the heinous act of murdering his brother. He doesn't express sorrow for Abel or for offending God, but for his own difficult future. It's a self-pity that seems to lack true brokenness over his sin.
Yet, even in this dark narrative, we see that paradox of mercy and judgment in the mark of Cain. It wasn't an additional curse, was it?
No, definitely not an additional punishment.
Instead, it was a divine intervention of protection. In granting it, God demonstrates this powerful blend of justice. Cain is punished, and mercy God prevents immediate anarchic vengeance.
Precisely. This demonstrates God's continued sovereign hand over even fallen humanity. He ensures a level of order and a continuation of the human population, preventing the immediate, chaotic spiral of revenge that Cain feared. It's a remarkable act of divine restraint, really, and forward thinking, preventing human society from potentially destroying itself entirely in its infancy.
Now let's consider Abel. He's presented as a righteous worshiper and, tragically, the first martyr. His righteousness is implicitly communicated through his offering of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. This wasn't just any offering. It points to a heart, the revered God that gave its absolute best, a genuine act of devotion.
His gift indicates a deeper understanding and disposition towards sacrificial worship, prioritizing the heart and the quality of the gift, which was profoundly pleasing to the divine. Abel's acceptance by God, clearly contrasted with Cain, sets a standard for acceptable worship that transcends mere ritual.
It's not just going through the motions.
No. It's about genuine devotion, a willing and costly act of honor, reflecting an inner reverence.
And his legacy is tragically profound as the first victim. Abel becomes the first human casualty of violence. He's the archetype of innocent suffering. His violent death, caused by his own brother, underscores the devastating interpersonal consequences of sin's entry into the world. And his blood crieth unto me from the ground, that establishes this profound motif of injustice demanding divine attention that echoes throughout Scripture.
That blood crying from the ground is such a powerful, almost haunting image. It resonates throughout biblical literature. It suggests that shedding innocent blood creates a disturbance in the moral fabric of creation itself, demanding a response from the ultimate judge. Abel's story becomes a foundational testament to the cost of sin and the cries of the unjustly wronged.
Finally, let's look at God's multifaceted role in this narrative. He is first the engaged questioner.
Yes.
His initial questions to Cain, why art thou wroth? Where Abel thy brother? As we said, they're not born of ignorance. They serve a profound pedagogical purpose.
That's such an important distinction. God's questions to Cain weren't because he didn't know the answers. They were an invitation, almost a challenge for Cain to look deep inside himself, to own his feelings and his actions.
Like with Adam and Eve.
Exactly. Much like his questions to Adam and Eve, this shows God's continued, intimate engagement with humanity, even in its fallen state. He wants them to recognize their choices and, ideally, confess.
He's also the righteous judge. God clearly discerns the heart condition behind the offerings. He knows Cain's hidden act perfectly. He pronounces a just judgment where the punishment, cursed ground, fugitive status directly aligns with the nature of Cain's crime and his livelihood. There's a cosmic appropriateness to it, a direct consequence for his actions.
And yet, paradoxically, God is also the merciful sovereign.
Both things are true.
Even in the midst of severe judgment, God's mercy prevails by providing that mark upon Cain. This act prevents a chaotic spiral of immediate revenge, asserting divine control over human retribution. It demonstrates that his justice is tempered with a sovereign restraint. He ensures that while consequences are real, total destruction is not his immediate answer.
So God is neither solely vengeful nor passively permissive. He actively engages with humanity, upholding moral order while simultaneously preserving life and a future for his creation. That intricate balance of justice and mercy is incredibly significant and sets a pattern for all of Scripture.
It really does. This combination of justice and mercy is a recurring central theme in God's interaction with humanity, showing that his judgments are not arbitrary, nor is his compassion limitless without consequence, but rather a perfect, harmonious blend of both. It's a foundational understanding of his character. #, theological and thematic analysis.
Now let's zoom out a bit and analyze the terrifying escalation of sin we see unfolding in Genesis 4. We can directly link this narrative right back to the events of the fall in Genesis 3.
Absolutely, the connection is immediate.
In chapter 3, we saw individual disobedience, a fractured vertical relationship with God, leading to shame, blame, and a cursed existence.
And Genesis 4 immediately shows the rapid outward spread of sin into horizontal human relationships.
Person to person.
Yes. The internal sin of anger and jealousy quickly metastasizes into external, deadly violence fratricide. It vividly demonstrates how a break with God inevitably leads to a break with fellow humanity. It's a stark illustration of how sin corrupts not just individuals, but the very fabric of society, starting right there in the first family.
And Lamech's infamous song, his boast, that feels like a dramatic crescendo in this escalation of human wickedness.
Oh, definitely. His chilling claim of 70 and sevenfold vengeance, far exceeding God's sevenfold protection for Cain, showcases humanity's rapid descent into a culture of self-righteous, excessive violence.
He's proud of it.
He demonstrates a profound embrace of unchecked retaliation and human presumption over divine authority. It indicates a rapid moral decay that is pulling society further and further from God's design.
This brings us to another key theme, the nature of acceptable worship and, critically, the heart of the worshiper.
Yes, this is so important.
The text strongly implies that God's acceptance wasn't based on the type of offering, grain versus animal, but on the quality and the heartfelt disposition of the one offering it.
This is a truly groundbreaking principle that echoes throughout all of Scripture. God isn't just watching the performance, he's looking at the heart behind it.
And that feels relevant even now.
Oh, it's profoundly relevant for us today. Think about it. Whether it's our spiritual practices, our relationships, even our work, this insight forces us to confront our deepest intentions. Are we giving our first fruits, our best time, energy, attention, or are we just, going through the motions, offering leftovers?
A good challenge.
It challenges us to cultivate an inner posture of devotion because, as we see with Cain, superficial acts, even if religiously correct on the surface, are meaningless if the heart is filled with resentment or self-interest. It's about genuine connection over empty ritual, isn't it?
We also see that theme of divine justice tempered with mercy playing out again and again. Justice is clearly manifested in Cain's punishment, directly linking his curse, the futility of the ground, restless wandering to his crime.
Yeah.
Abel's blood literally cries out for justice,
Mm-hmm.
and God, as a righteous judge, responds.
But here's where it gets really interesting again. Paradoxically, God's mercy is also profoundly evident. Before the murder, God offers guidance, a clear chance for Cain to overcome sin.
He gave him a warning.
And even after the murder, the mark upon Cain prevents human vigilantism and ensures Cain's survival. This demonstrates God's continued sovereign plan for humanity, even a fallen one. He ensures humanity continues even when its choices are destructive.
It's an intricate, beautiful balance. God is neither solely vengeful nor passively permissive. He actively engages, upholding moral order while simultaneously preserving life and a future for his creation.
It's a testament to his character that he governs with both unwavering righteousness and profound compassion.
Now let's talk about the profound significance of the genealogies in Chapter 5. Many people might see these lists of names and ages and think, okay, let's skip that part.
Right. Eyes glaze over sometimes.
But for you, our listener, these are far from mere lists. They detail the relentless march of time and the universality of mortality.
Absolutely. The book of the generations of Adam meticulously tracks human lifespans, covering vast epochs. And that powerful rhythmic refrain, "and he died," repeated for almost every single figure, serves as a poignant and inescapable reminder of the fall's most profound consequence. Death has become the universal experience for all humanity. This is a direct, undeniable fulfillment of God's warning back in Genesis 2:17.
It's like a solemn drumbeat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Echoing through the generations, reminding us that despite these incredibly long lives and extensive procreation, the shadow of mortality looms over every single person. It emphasizes the ultimate, inescapable consequence of that initial disobedience.
And yet, amidst this pervasive mortality, the genealogy also highlights the preservation of an unbroken line.
That's important too.
Despite sin, violence, and death, it meticulously maintains a continuous human lineage from Adam through Seth to Noah. This unbroken succession is crucial for the larger biblical narrative. It ensures the continuity of humanity towards the figures and promises that will shape its future. It implicitly underscores God's faithfulness to his creation, even when humanity repeatedly fails.
And then there's that glimmer of hope, that single shining exception, Enoch's unique departure.
Yes, Enoch stands out.
The singular exception to the death refrain. Enoch, who walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. This unique transition offers a powerful early theological insight.
It suggests that a close, righteous relationship with God can indeed transcend the ordinary fate of humanity. It hints at spiritual rewards and a radically different kind of destiny. He stands as a beacon of devotion amidst a world increasingly defined by sin and death. Enoch is a powerful example of living in deep, transformative relationship with God, showing us that even in the midst of a fallen world, a different path is possible, one that brings a unique kind of divine favor.
Finally, Lamech's naming of Noah, expressing hope for comfort because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed, subtly builds anticipation. It looks forward, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's a statement of profound, deeply human longing. You can almost feel the collective weariness and desperation for some kind of relief from the relentless grind, the sheer burden of living on this cursed earth. This beautifully sets the stage for Noah's significant role in a coming divine intervention that will address the pervasive sin and the curse upon the earth, paving the way for a new beginning. The genealogies aren't just looking backward, they're profoundly looking forward, pointing us toward what God will do next. #tag cultural and historical context.
To truly appreciate the story of Cain and Abel, we need to step back into the ancient Near Eastern, or ANE, context where these events unfolded. Specifically, understanding the roles of shepherds and farmers.
Yeah, those two primary occupations.
These two distinct and often coexisting ways of life in that world.
That's key. Shepherds, like Abel, were often nomadic or semi-nomadic, constantly moving their flocks for pasture. Their livelihood depended directly on the animals themselves: meat, milk, wool, skins. They were seen as distinct from settled agriculturalists.
Okay. And farmers.
Farmers, on the other hand, like Cain, were tied to specific plots of land. Their success depended heavily on seasonal cycles, rainfall, the fertility of the soil. Their yield came directly from the ground.
It's important to clarify, though, that the narrative isn't making a value judgment on the professions themselves, right? It's not saying being a shepherd is inherently better than being a farmer.
No, not at all.
Instead, the story highlights the individual's disposition within their role and the quality of their worship, rather than an inherent superiority of one profession over another.
Exactly. The conflict wasn't about the careers, but the hearts of the men in them. While historical evidence does suggest tension or conflict between these two lifestyles over land use, resources, and cultural practices in the ANE,
Okay.
the Genesis narrative zeroes in on the internal spiritual state of the brothers, not their career choice. The occupations merely provide the backdrop against which their true characters are revealed.
Another often overlooked aspect is the literary purpose and function of genealogies in ancient texts. As we discussed, Chapter 5 might seem like a dry list, but it's crucial for understanding the wider narrative and how ancient people structured their history.
You're right. Genealogies were fundamental in ancient societies. They meticulously documented family lines to establish lineage, claims to land or inheritance, tribal affiliations, and a vital sense of collective identity. They served as historical records in a different way than we might expect today, connecting people to their past and their future.
And from a literary perspective, they served as an incredibly efficient and concise means of spanning vast periods of time,
Bridging the gap.
connecting significant events and individuals without requiring elaborate, detailed narratives for every single intervening generation. They provide a structural backbone, a continuous thread to the historical account.
And in Genesis specifically, these genealogies are not merely lists of names and ages. They powerfully reinforce key theological themes,
Like what?
like the rapid spread of humanity across the earth, the universal impact of the fall most starkly seen in that pervasive "and he died" refrain,
Yeah.
and the consistent long-term unfolding of God's plan despite human depravity by preserving a continuous line from Adam to Noah. They do so much more than just list names.
They also serve as a literary device for anticipation and direction. They direct our attention toward key figures, like Noah,
Pointing forward.
who are pivotal to the unfolding divine narrative, indicating the preparation for a new phase in God's interaction with humanity. They're signposts, pointing to what's next and why it matters. Hashtag connecting the threads.
So let's connect these threads now and really see the bigger picture emerging from Genesis 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Cain's story, as we've seen, is the immediate tragic fruit of the fall. There's a direct causal link from Genesis 3 to Genesis 4.
The consequences aren't delayed.
No. The consequences introduced by Adam and Eve's disobedience in Genesis 3, that broken vertical relationship with God, the introduction of shame, the curse on the ground, the promise of death, these are not abstract theological concepts. They manifest immediately and tragically in the very next chapter.
That's a powerful connection. The fall's fruit isn't just personal sin, it's the profound breakdown of the very first human relationships.
It escalates so quickly.
We see it escalate from the husband-wife blame game in Eden straight to brother-on-brother murder. The ideal of harmonious family, God's original design, is just shattered by jealousy and violence. It illustrates how sin poisons every level of human interaction.
Cain's story stands as a stark, immediate example of how sin corrupts human nature and poisons societal interaction, reflecting the broader impact on the human family as a whole. It's a rapid descent into depravity, demonstrating the accelerating, destructive power of sin unleashed in the world.
And this is where that rhythmic and pervasive nature of the phrase, "and he died," throughout Genesis 5, becomes so potent.
Yes, that constant refrain.
It's more than a factual record. It functions as a solemn, relentless drumbeat, emphasizing the inescapable reality of mortality as a direct consequence of the fall. This is the ultimate fulfillment of God's warning in Genesis 3:19. For dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
It's a stark reminder that no matter how long we live, death is the universal human experience post-fall.
And when you couple this omnipresent theme of death with the previously highlighted escalation of sin and violence in Cain's line, especially Lamech's chilling boast, it creates an increasingly somber and foreboding atmosphere for you, our listener. The narrative, through its detailed yet grim accounting, implicitly paints this picture of a world spiraling further and further into wickedness and death.
This consistent theme of pervasive sin and its ultimate consequence, death, powerfully builds a profound sense of anticipation. As a listener, you're left with a growing understanding of the dire state of humanity, implicitly questioning, what will God do?
Yeah, what's the response going to be?
What will God do in response to such pervasive corruption and the relentless march of death? This question perfectly sets the crucial stage for the dramatic intervention of the flood narrative in Genesis 6 and 7. These chapters lay the necessary, somber groundwork for a coming divine reset. Conclusion.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Genesis 4 and 5, we've seen how the stories of Cain and Abel vividly illustrate the destructive power of unchecked jealousy and anger, and how quickly sin escalates from those internal resentments to overt violence, shattering the fabric of human relationships. It's a timeless lesson in human nature, really.
We've also explored the profound importance of sincerity, of the heart's disposition in worship, as powerfully demonstrated by the acceptance of Abel's offering over Cain's. God sees the intention, the internal posture, not just the outward act. That sets a foundational principle for all who seek to connect with the divine.
And we highlighted God's consistent character, both a righteous, discerning judge who sees the deepest intentions, holding humanity accountable,
Yes.
and a merciful provider who, even in judgment, offers protection and sustains life. It's a complex yet beautifully coherent picture of the divine character.
Finally, we've understood that the genealogies in Chapter 5, far from being mere lists, serve as powerful literary and theological devices. They underscore the universal reality of mortality post-fall, the vast sweep of early human history, and the continuous, divinely preserved lineage of humanity, all leading with purpose to a greater narrative, and specifically to Noah.
So, for your reflection as we close, maybe consider the devastating impact of jealousy and anger as portrayed in Cain's story. How can we in our own lives cultivate self-awareness and intentional practices to recognize and constructively manage these powerful, potentially destructive emotions?
Yep, great question.
How can we prevent them from leading to personal turmoil, conflict, or division in our own relationships and communities, recognizing their destructive potential before they spiral out of control?
Or alternatively, perhaps reflecting on the unique account of Enoch, who walked with God amidst that universal refrain of, and he died. What insights does this offer us about seeking a deeper, transformative spiritual connection in our finite lives? And how might that understanding shape our daily walk in a world still grappling with the realities of sin and mortality? How might it invite us to cultivate a walk that, in some way, transcends the common fate?
Powerful questions for all of us to think about. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time as we continue to unearth the beginning.